Yeah, yeah. Um,
You don't have to tell us. We know what AT&T did. Yes, let's blame them.
yeah, of course. It's always good to blame the party that is to blame. I agree. Um, Let me load up the comments.
So for those that are not aware, let me catch you up to speed from the 2 minutes of glory that you missed. That will stay. It will stay on the channel. We'll name it like failed stream or something. Uh, it was setting up to be the greatest intro ever, and it was basically an anime opening, inspired by the potential Area 51 that could be happening, the raid, and we reacted to it. And then I guess because we know too much and because we're making light of it, AT&T, which I'm convinced is in cahoots with the FBI, shut us down.
As
Although
they
it's
often
AT&T,
do.
so for all intents and yes, for all we know, they probably shut everyone down that uses AT&T because it's AT&T.
But we have our right to free speech. We will not be shut down. We don't have guns over here, but I'll pull out a knife to defend myself. You know?
Well, I have freedom of speech. I don't know about you. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't. We don't. We think we do. We try to, but we don't really.
That's something interesting. What are the parameters of your speech? I assume like some of the usual. You can't you can't threaten somebody in power.
You can't badmouth our leader. Literally, you can't badmouth him. You can criticize his work, but you can't really badmouth his excellency. You know, that's one thing you can't touch. You also can't touch the prophet. Yeah, of course, that's just regular Islamic behavior. Like you're not supposed to do stuff like that. But in any other case, you're allowed to say what you want. Just you will be punished for it if it gets too far. And by punish, interrogation, blah, blah. And by interrogation, I mean, if you're a public figure. If you're not a public figure, you would just be defamed generally. So, common discourse, this allows you to go too edgy, but some people thrive off that. So in any case, Soul Grinder, welcome. Glasses off.
Yes, I'm going to do it a little bit more civilized this time. We are maturing as a show, as a species. So instead of chucking them like some hooligan savage, I will gently smash them on the ground.
That's very American, actually, if you think about it.
Well, we have a lot of excuses to smash a lot of things on the ground.
But let's talk about what happened this week. There's been plenty of stuff, plenty of stupidity to cover. I don't know where to start. We promised not to talk too much about SJW feminazi stuff, but that's all what the news has been. What do you want from us? If we are here, our very newsworthy channel, we cover what's hot and what's relevant. And let's start off with the one that pissed the most people off, right? Right? Marvel announced their fucking 2014, 2015 agenda. They put out a bunch of bunch of titles, bunch of stuff on their Disney Plus channel, and one of them was Thor: Love and Thunder. And then you see the director Waititi giving Natalie Portman, who's back now for some reason, Thor's hammer, and welcome the female Thor. And people were outraged. But what became relevant? Not the outrage of people who are fans of Thor. They're like, are they going to replace Thor with a different person? We don't want Hemsworth to be replaced. Instead, it became you shouldn't call her female Thor, man. It should be Thor. And I'm like, ugh, just, pain. It's been pain. Looking at comments and looking at Twitter feeds and just people getting angry at the wrong things. What do you mean? Don't call her female Thor? What else am I gonna call her? Thor the Second?
Well, Thor here's the interesting. The interesting part about the whole female Thor situation is that, as far as I'm concerned, there is not a name confirmed for her yet. And there's an interesting thing that tends to happen with media, is that if something gets allotted a name before you yourself, the creator, even have a name in mind or even allotted a name yourself, then you fall victim to the first impressions, and the first impressions is everyone is calling her female Thor. But I get the vibe, I get the impression that that's not what they're going for, because men and women are equal in today's day and age. As I repeat every week, spoiler alert, they're not. And something tells me that they're going to have a real problem, Marvel that is, letting the name female Thor slide, right? Like they might go balls out and just go, you know, it's just going to be called, she's going to be called Thor again, even though Thor clearly does not, like, it doesn't fit her because it's not her name. Like, she's not the character. Do you realize how difficult that it is going to be for fans to see past Chris Hemsworth to begin with, but to be replaced by Natalie Portman, who is a tremendous actress? But sometimes it doesn't matter how good you are. If you get put in a terrible situation, you're going to have a terrible time. And already this is shaping out to be Marvel's biggest disaster. And part of the reason why is because after Avengers Endgame, myself, along with many others, with the exception of Spider-Man and potentially Black Panther, depending on how SJW it gets, we're done. We're done with Marvel. Like, it's going to take a lot to take us to bring us back. Like, Comic-Con did not impress a lot of people.
And to add this further, like, look at the lineup, right? The first queer superhero, the first Asian superhero, the first woke superhero, right? And it keeps going, right? And
which I take exception to the whole first Asian superhero, because come on, like, Bruce Lee was the first Asian superhero, quote unquote, gained mainstream attention. So let's show some respect for the GOAT here.
Dude, Black Panther wasn't even the first black superhero film. Nobody heard of Blade. I loved Blade as a kid. But regardless, that's not the point. The point is that these are the defining features of our new superhero, is their alignment, their SJW alignment. And there's a problem here. The problem here is Iron Man wasn't the first white, rich superhero type. He was Iron Man. Captain America wasn't the first, or the first righteous superhero. He was Captain America. Like,
yeah, it's I get the impression that the wokeness, as always, is going to fit right into the category, into that saying, get woke, go broke. And I'm calling it really early here, but we've seen it time and time again, and it's coming for Marvel next. We see Disney kind of falling into this trap, but they're such a behemoth that it's going to take a lot to bring them down. So it's going to start with their individual entities, right? And what better fit than for Marvel, right? For the superhero genre, which has gained so much traction and has created such a, some people claim it's reached its peak. I'm one of those people. I think Avengers Endgame is like the peak of superhero movies as far as we're concerned, because DC, in my opinion, or any other superhero out there is nowhere near a franchise-wise at reaching what Marvel has accomplished. And if that's the peak, then I'm sorry, and it's all downhill from here, then the wokeness is not really adding to this, or not really adding positively to it.
Well, I'll take this further, right? Everybody loved Wonder Woman, right? Like, by far the best movie DC has created so far, right? People argue Shazam, but I don't think so. I think Wonder Woman is the good one, right? Compared to Captain Marvel, right? Both with strong female leads, right, as their main characters. People loved they loved Wonder Woman. They hated Captain Marvel. The SJWs hated Wonder Woman and loved Captain Marvel, and that sparked something into the critics' eyes, or the director's eyes, right? And then I would like to bring out the Netflix example, which are the perfect example right now of get woke, go broke. And what they did, they lost million because the investors started pulling out because of all of the projections not meeting up to standards. And if you look at all the titles right now, Stranger Things got woke, Black Mirror got woke, forced to get woke. By the way, it wasn't their choice. a lot of shows on Netflix stopped producing quality, edgy, R-rated content, like like the Marvel cinematic, like Netflix universe. What's that name? Like the Lucifer show, all that stuff, all of the scary stuff, all the good shit, all has been changed into LGTB stupidity, and people just got sick of it. So they started getting away from Netflix, and now that Netflix not lost its sort of monopoly on good streaming, that's going to affect Disney Plus as well. And Disney Plus is getting woke as well. And the Marvel movies are getting woke as well. And what did you tell me? That Star Wars stupidity? People are wearing a T-shirt. What is it called? Like,
Yeah, the executives of Star Wars now, the top executives who all happen to be female, they're wearing a matching shirt that reads "The Force is female."
which is like, for anybody who's like, I'm sorry for any Star Wars fan. I'm really sorry, but that's what you have now. That's what D&D are coming to help create, right? It's done, right? Disney already killed Star Wars, and now it seems like they want to kill their Marvel Cinematic Universe. Disney Plus is not going to save you, and I don't think it's going to succeed either. I think it's going to be a big flop, mainly because the only thing streaming services had was convenience, everything in one place. Now you have to add like 8 subscriptions to watch the things you want, and whenever this shit gets inconvenient, everybody just goes to the high seas, and it's a pirate life for them. And I know I'm feeling tempted to do so, right? Out of convenience, not out of like wanting to steal the content. It's just inconvenient to just have 18,000 subscriptions and managing that. It's painful.
Let me put it to you like this as well. As I mentioned earlier, regrettably, I have AT&T as not only an internet provider, but as a service provider, or as a television provider. AT&T recently dropped CBS from their lineup, as in you can get AT&T Uverse, but you cannot watch CBS there. Now, it hasn't been revealed exactly why this is, but it's theorized that either AT&T decided to drop them for something related to the contract that they had, and or CBS decided to back out because CBS, like many other channels, have caught on to the fact that we can make more money making our own streaming services because we have our own exclusives, right? CBS, they have The Big Bang Theory, Young Sheldon, Big Brother. They have a bunch of like cop shows that people really like here. I'm pretty sure they have NCIS. Like CBS is a juggernaut, television-wise, and we don't have them now. And guess what we were forced to do as a family? Because I enjoy some CBS shows. My parents enjoy some CBS shows. We had to pay for a CBS subscription for their streaming service because AT&T is not going to give it to us. And that's not the only channel that they've dropped, because channels are individual channels, not even originally constructed streaming services, not even like Netflix, which decided from the beginning we were going to be a streaming service. And that's how we're going to make our money. It's like you have these channels now. Nickelodeon probably has its own streaming service. And like you can still watch it on TV, but if you want the exclusives, like if you want to get the Legend of Korra prequel before anyone else, that's the only Nickelodeon show I know besides SpongeBob, maybe, right? Like you have to get Nickelodeon Plus or Nick Plus. And that's where we are now. We have to pay for all of these individual platforms. And it used to be cheaper. It used to be cheaper just to cancel cable and pay individually for a couple streaming services, HBO, Netflix, Hulu, Showtime. I knew plenty of people that did that, myself included. And now, imagine if every individual channel, sports, drama, everything, they all made their individual streaming services. And think about it, it's possible. They already have their own websites. The Discovery Channel, History, ESPN, they all have their own individual channels. They can easily make their individual streaming services if they like. And assuming they all charge like 10 to 15 bucks a month, which they all do, or they charge like $5 a month with ads, which people hate ads. So believe me, some people would be willing to pay the 10 bucks every single time. Ultimately, it comes out more expensive than cable. I don't know where this is going.
No, I can extend this further. Um, here's the thing. Streaming was like supposed to be convenient, right? That's what a streaming service is supposed to be. And I'm gonna throw it into video games just to give it as a better example, right? In video games, what makes Steam convenient as a platform is not the fact that they have exclusives. They do, but it's the fact that besides the exclusives, they provide you with a better inclusive service for almost every game out there to warrant you to use it as your primary um, like launcher, right? If you go to a streaming service, it's much like a launcher, right? It hosts shows for you to do, except unlike Steam, you have to pay monthly to access it. Not only that, um, everybody is getting their own exclusives, and it reaches a point where exclusives become bad because that's the only reason you're in that streaming service. Nobody is working on convenience anymore. They're working on racking up as much exclusives as they can, so you'd go to them. Problem with that is when you have too many options and no way to conveniently break your way into something that you can actually use effectively, you just end up canceling every service and again going on the high seas, you know. And
or even better, you technically do it legally, but you keep going through all of these legal hurdles in regards to you going out of your way to finesse every single streaming service, the way that people have been doing with Netflix for years, where they keep making email addresses to keep getting free trials so that they can watch the shows that they want when they come out. The problem there is people were already doing that with like 10 different email addresses with Netflix. Imagine doing that with 10 other different streaming services. Would you have enough hours in the day?
And again, that's why I think streaming is going to take a big flop until people realize what people are looking for is different from what they're trying to provide. Exclusives aren't the only thing that people are looking for. It's also good service. You earn those $15 a month. You earn it through hard labor, and Netflix used to have that. And now it's done. They got woke. They killed their monopoly. Everybody was pro Netflix 2 years ago. Now everybody's like, oh, Netflix is shit now. And in this day and age in the internet, if you're not responding well to your audience and giving them what they want in a way that they can understand and digest, they are going to drop you very quickly. Just look at YouTubers when they do something wrong. It's very hard for them to come back, and they need to do a lot of steps, and people will forgive you, but you need to take the right choices. And one of the main things you can do is go woke. That kills everybody's buzz.
And let me tell you why this is such a difficult problem to solve. I mean, the woke situation is easy. Just stop going out of your way to make black characters or gay characters. Like, if you want those characters, make them multifaceted. Make it so that there's more to them than just being that individual stereotype, which I always find ironic that it's like these progressives always want to move these supposed progressive characters, but they still dwindle them down to their stereotypes. Not very progressive at all. But as far as the whole monopoly situation that Netflix once had, it was convenient, and that's why people liked it. But this is a difficult problem to solve because everyone was on Netflix and everybody let their shows be on Netflix before Netflix became the juggernaut that it is. Then everyone else realized we can make money from streaming and it's our own individual rights, right? Like, these are all our properties. Probably the biggest example of this and why Netflix, the meme was why Netflix is dying, is because The Office is leaving Netflix. The Office is one of the most popular shows ever. And it's certainly one of the most popular shows on Netflix. And because NBC, which I believe is the original creator, decided, hey, we're taking it back because we're making our own streaming service. So we kind of want our thing back.
Yeah.
And it's The Office, so in a way we're holding it hostage. But it was always ours, right? We just let Netflix borrow it. Well, every company that makes a product, it's theirs, right? And they get to decide where it is or where it doesn't go. And so this is difficult because this is one of the few opportunities, really, where a monopoly was actually flourishing in the favor of consumers.
And that's one thing that a lot of corporations right now are forgetting. You don't have a guaranteed audience, and it's consumer first. I'm sorry to tell you, company, but there's a reason people are like sucking the dick of CD Projekt Red so much these days, and are hating on like something like Epic Games. And let me tell you, I got a first-hand experience with Epic Games, and like a lot of people got their titles stolen. They expected their shit to come out on Steam, and then they got bought out, and now it's an exclusive on Epic Games, right? And I always told those other people to boycott said game in protest, you know. And what happened is there was a game I liked. I looked at it on YouTube. It's called Anno 1800. Looks like an industrial revolution, like colony builder, which seems very fun to play. And I'm like, okay, I'll get back on that. A few months later, I open Steam to buy it, right? And it's not there. I look it up, and Epic Games got it as an exclusive, and Steam can no longer like sell it. People who have it can play it, but they can no longer sell it. And I got so angry that I got denied that I decided to fuck the game, right? Fuck the game for selling out to Epic Games, or fuck Epic Games for forcing me to use their platform. I'm not going to do either, right? So what happens is, me as a consumer got offended. I'm not gonna like contribute to your monopoly or you trying to monopolize shit. I'm gonna go where service provides me best. And what is it? Steam. Steam provides you best. Steam got your back. You can refund games. You can do a lot of stuff. And while they're very harsh, too harsh in my opinion, against the producer, they at least have the right idea, which is important, very relevant. And streaming services, if they're gonna get anywhere, they're gonna have to beat that. And I do agree, GOG beats Steam, but they don't provide as many services just yet. I think they will surpass Steam at some point. I hope they do, Hassan. But for now, Steam is the big guy, right? And GOG have to step up their game, and I hope they do. And anybody who's pro-consumer has my back, because you as a business provider has to have the consumer first. That's how you make money, and that's how you gather an audience. You can no longer reach the age where you can like do financial tricks on people. That era's dead. Bad cooperation is going to die out, in my opinion, because people are going to go where people treat them best. It's just the way it goes.
And make no mistake, gaming was the first to encounter this issue, especially the whole woke situation. There's a particular game which I've promised to hold my tongue about until a future episode.
Yeah, our next
a game that's notorious for we'll get to it when we get to it, but it's not the only suspect, or it's not the only victim, I would call it actually. They've already fallen victim to the wokeness, and I would argue that a lot of them, while they are suffering, there are some companies that are starting to come back and kind of combat it through just incorporating what they want to incorporate. And that's the way you do it. Like you incorporate diversity the way it should be, the way you see fit as a creator. It's on you. The streaming situation, though, I find that interesting how that is happening simultaneously. That war, Steam, GOG, Epic Games, that whole threesome is happening simultaneously to the juggernauts of Netflix, Disney, and HBO, or whatever other you want to plug in there. Like the streaming wars are happening as we speak, and it won't stop at gaming. Like I had a friend that made a joke, and he's like, what about people who read or have Audible, right? That like audiobook streaming service. And I'm like, hold on a sec. It's an audiobook streaming service. Like you can download the books, but apparently you can stream them too. And I'm just like, oh no.
No,
how long before that gets competition?
I want back the ability. I can subscribe to your streaming list, or if I want, just to buy the thing I want and have it permanently in my possession. You know, I just want that. Can I have that back? You know, I was sold whenever people go to Audible, they're like, okay, you know, first thing you get 2 audiobooks free, right? And you keep them. That's what won me. And then the reason I never took on what's called Kindle was because you can't have a Kindle free book, if you bought it on Kindle, you need to use Kindle. I'm like, fuck that. You know, I want the book I buy to be permanently within my possession in PDF form or in physical form. And like I can't like upload PDFs on Kindle or something to that effect. Like, what benefit do you provide me besides locking me to your platform? No, thank you. I don't want to be limited.
Like the only reason Kindle works, just to put this into perspective, is because they're owned by Amazon, right? And Amazon is, if you want to talk monopolies, they are the biggest here. They have direct competition. Actually, that's debatable. They have competition. How about that? But they have surpassed so far above it that it's really not even worth mentioning what would come second to Amazon. If you can even conceive of, like, if you can even think of something that would come second to Amazon. Walmart? An online sale? I don't know. Best Buy? I don't know. Amazon has everything you need, and that's why Kindle works, because they have every single book in existence, basically, and that's the only reason Kindle works, and that's the only reason people would be considering it. But as soon as there is a direct, I still think Audible is more popular, though. As soon as Audible receives a direct competitor, and make no mistake, it happened with Netflix, it happened with Steam, it will happen with Audible. Someone gets ballsy enough to step up.
Yep. As far as I'm concerned,
exclusives.
I'm not tackling Audible, nor am I tackling Kindle for the main reason that they're Amazon exclusives, and I don't like that. And unlike Steam, I don't see a benefit to having Amazon stuff. Like there is no direct benefit. I might as well just get the physical copy. It's one of these things that big tech is so big, I don't want to be a part of it type of thing. And if I can get an alternative to Amazon when it comes to buying stuff, I would happily jump on it. It's just like, Amazon reached the point where when I order something from Amazon, it gets shipped to me within a 3 to 4 day period. And it does not sound like much for you guys in the States. But for people like us, back in the day, you order something and you wait a month and then it comes to you. And you're happy because it got here so fast. And now we're able to get it within a 4 day period. This is beyond amazing. So I want a direct competitor, but like there is no winner against the efficiency. But there is no efficiency in audiobook or Kindle because it's online. And Hassan, no, I do not use Parsec. I don't know what that is. You can tell me what it is.
Wikipedia Plus. Oh my God, it's all these pluses. Disney Plus. Wasn't PlayStation the one that started that? PlayStation Plus, and then everyone's like, Plus, that's a good one. You wouldn't say subtract or minus.
It's like the Thing, but more. It's such a clever name.
It's so basic though. Like it's basically insulting. Like I'm waiting for the first person to be, or the first company to be like, Walgreens multiply. And
here's my thing. That's why I like Nintendo. Despite them having exclusives, the only reason they have exclusives on their Switch is because they make the fucking game. It's very different when you're the developer. Of course you want it on your platform. It's rare for them to steal a game and make it an exclusive. They poured in as many games as possible to the point where it became plausible to have a Switch and a PC, and that's it. Which is what I have. I don't have any other console. I sold my Xbox One. I just didn't provide anything for me. And whenever I roster for PS4, I'm like, what? Am I gonna buy a PS4 for like 2 games? No, I'm not. So, the Switch and PC provide me the best services and quality via mods and portability. They have a gimmick. There is a reason to invest. And what Nintendo does is they just give you stuff, and you can buy them and you can play them. Very simple. You can download them. You can get a physical copy. It's very convenient. You can gain points and then cash them in order to get to another game. Everything is very convenient to you, which I like and enjoy. But you look at PS4 and they're hoarding exclusives, and you look at Xbox One and they're doing literally nothing, and it's just Oh, better hardware. Okay, for what? To play what? That's what the Xbox dilemma is. And Nintendo's just destroying everybody left and right, left and right.
I remember when I
And
was trying to
again,
decide if I should get a PS4 or an Xbox. You, like everyone else, said PC Master Race, and I'm like, soon. But I remember that was the big dilemma. It's what exclusives are you into? And I'm like, I'm not getting the console for the exclusives. I'm getting it because it's a platform. Like most games are going to be offered on both platforms, so I'm running off of that basis. So off of that, what do you suggest? And then eventually I made my decision, and some people think I'm wrong, some people think I'm right. But I remember that was the first thing that you brought up to me is like Microsoft runs better. I believe you said like Xbox is run better, but PlayStation has the better exclusives.
yep.
And that's something that people truthfully take into consideration. And I actually think that compared to all of the other messes happening around when it comes to exclusives, PS4 and Xbox have kept it relatively civil compared to like the streaming platforms.
Yep. And I hope like streaming services, and I don't want Marvel to die. I don't want Disney to fail. Actually, I want Disney to fail. Never mind. But I don't want Marvel to fail.
You want to see what happens, right? Like you want to see what it feels like when Disney finally hits rock bottom.
Yeah, and they're definitely digging their digging their graves rather, very, very quickly. Like, okay, they're doing live action, right? And Black Mermaid, Little Mermaid. Okay, the Aladdin one was quite all right, but the Lion King, according to people, was horribly SJW and stupid. And and they're increasing. They're adding more wokeness, and that will make them eventually lose money. Frozen was already a disaster. It sold a lot for the kids, but it was a disaster as a story, right? And the quality has been flopping and going down. And Endgame, I think, is the last time we're going to see a good superhero phenomenon on film because of this woke stuff. I was like, oh, they can still bring it back in if they do the right things. They're not doing things, and what's going to happen is like people like all of Hollywood is suffering right now from this wokeness stuff. And you know what? I'm going to pull this up right now, okay? When it comes to wokeness. Here is the audience you're dealing with. There's a tweet, okay? There's a series of tweets. They're in Arabic. I'm going to translate it to the best ability. This is the audience that they're trying to cater to, all right? And I'm sorry, guys, for what you're about to hear, but it goes like this. Quote, sperm is a lie created by men to give us the illusion that they are participating in the act of conception. But the truth is that the kid, how is it possible for a kid to come from a sperm? How does it live inside the male? How does it have like an oxygen tank or something? The woman is the one that carries and is able to conceive without men. Then it continues on. And it goes, the lying man, the lying man pees on top of you to give you the illusion of the lie that has been built upon generations of his sex. So you would think that the kid came from him, and your subconscious starts registering the idea of conception with the male, right? Look at the tricks that men give you to sell you on the idea that they are a part of conception. And then they come with their scientists, the male scientists, and they side with their race, when in reality, how can the kid that is beautiful and and pure and all of that come from your parts, your stinky parts? Okay. And the conception comes like in months. I don't get this part. Like I don't know how to translate this. And then she goes like, "My dear female sisters, um, the person in charge of conception is your subconscious and only your subconscious. And when pairing, your husband tries to control your mind to give you the illusion that he's the one making you conceive, and will start playing his tricks and manipulations to give you the signals to start conception." And the best tweets of all, like the last part, these are a series of tweets, right? Now, as an example, my cousin, who's 28 years old, traveled on her own, okay? And she came back pregnant while not being married or never like pairing with anybody. Yeah, right? Like, it's, you know where this is going. But she says she's been impregnated by a ghost, a jinn in our culture, and every 2 months she comes to like a religious figure to like get a blessing to just to remove the curse, right? But in reality,
so she's Mary. She's the Virgin Mary reincarnated, basically.
Yes. But in reality, this bitch claims, in reality, she used her subconscious mind to get pregnant. And so if she knew that, she wouldn't need to go to any religious figure. End quote. And that's the end of the tweet. Fucking spasm, right? Now, this is what you're dealing with. These are the people that you're talking to. This is the feminism. This is the wokeness of the female figure. Fuck logic, fuck science, fuck tradition, fuck everything you stand for. Logic is dead. It's done. And it's built upon their ideology, and this is primary proof. Nothing you'll ever say to this bitch will ever convince her otherwise. That's the funny part. You can make fun of her, you can mock her, you can try to reason with her. There is no way. She's done. She's lost. She is outside. She's woke. There's no coming back.
Okay, I let you finish. I have to ask, and I mean this in the most truthful way possible. What the fuck did you just say? Dude. All right, I'm going to sum this up with the joke that you told me, which I don't know if it's your own original concept. I think I've heard it before, actually, before you, but it was a good joke nonetheless. It's the vending machine analogy. It's more of an analogy than a joke. It's, when you want a soda or a candy bar or something, you put in a coin into the vending machine, push the button, and it comes out and it gives you what you put in, basically, the equivalent of what you put in. When a guy, assuming that his ding dong is the coin and the woman's hole, the right hole, because like other vending machines, there's multiple holes on a human being. Assuming that he puts his coin into the right hole, he eventually gets what he asked for, the equivalent of what he put in. By the logic of the vending machine argument, if that candy bar is yours because you're the one that put in the coin, then perhaps the male who put in his coin has a right to the kid that is
Louis, I have to stop you. I have to stop you right
now. Because I'm still trying to work myself through this.
You are a disease, okay? You are the reason women have been oppressed the entire time. You should feel horrible. You should feel bad. And by the way, guys, these are real tweets. I am not bullshitting you, okay? I see people like questioning the sanity of it. I know it does not. It's It cannot be true. I know that, but I'm right now sending links on Discord to Louis of the images. So Discord ports them into links, and I'm gonna post them on stream, and you guys can view them. You can open your screen translator, those fancy things that translate from any language to other language. The second you screenshot it, wonderful app. You can use that, and you can see for yourself. Okay, this was not fake. This was added. The account is there. You can go and like check for yourself. I don't know if she deleted her tweets at this point.
Yep, it's real. Yep.
I'm gonna now send the links. Like, copy a link. I'm gonna send all 3 tweets. There were 3 screenshots. I'm gonna send them, and you guys take it for how you take it. It's madness. You look at that, and I remember I watched the Peterson video on this, and which is like the basis of feminist ideology, is the idea that logic is a male misogyny concept, that it's made by the patriarchy to oppress females. Logic. You guys need to understand this. This is the basis of the ideology. So if that's the basis of your ideology, you can just make stuff up. Your imagination is the limit. The sky is the limit. You can fly. It's just male oppression stopping you. It's done. People who sell this, it's done.
You do realize that most of the stuff that people are saying these days in defense of their points are made up. And they're being very tactical as far as where they bring them up. So they will bring up their points. A lot of these stem from universities, right? American schools, because we let them. It's like the indoctrination that they had previously wasn't enough. So they're letting them speak freely now on university campuses. And on paper, that seems like a very good idea. And it is still a very good idea, as long as it goes both ways and you're allowing everyone to have that freedom of speech. The problem is when the privilege gets allotted only to the people that are preaching the crazy stuff, and that the people who preach the crazy stuff are being lauded, as opposed to the people who are moderates or the people that are preaching something in contrast. They are the people that get called, the old ones, or the traditionalists, or they're the people that get cast aside because it's time to move past what the past was. Well, no, it's not time to move past what the past was, because that's up to people to decide on their own volition if they want to move past what once was. And this is probably the best example of it, because nowhere in this stream of consciousness, I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt and claim that whatever she was on, I want some of it, because this is one of those thoughts that you had to have been really bored yet somehow really creative to come up with. And she manifested it to basically arguing that the vending machine analogy is invalid. That basically, in order to create a child, as has been biologically the case since the beginning of time, you do not need a male. That's just an illusion.
Yep.
Well, until we get artificial sperm cells, which, make no mistake, is something people are trying to do, and rightfully so. I guess if the guys in Japan are getting virtual reality pussy, right, then it only makes sense that the girls want artificial sperm. That makes sense. I'm not hating on that. What I'm hating on is people getting ahead of themselves and jumping that hurdle before we've even arrived.
To me, what annoys me particularly about that tweet is not just trying to deny males their part in conception, but also like the analogy, like that we're like sweaty, dirty people. The male is a dirty individual. I'm like, I take showers every day. I don't know. I'm relatively clean. I smell all right. Like, what's wrong? Yeah, I take care of myself. And people generally do. And like how much do you have to hate the male? and feel oppressed and angry and frustrated to make such claims. It's like it's one of these things. Like, I want to interview this female, and I want this female to be interviewed by a psychologist, right? I want to see what's in there. What happened to you? You know, who hurt you, and why?
Yeah, it's not as simple as like you had some daddy issues, right?
You know, it's definitely
it
not.
goes beyond that. It's like, not only was there possibly not a father in your life or a father figure, there was like, did you ever have it? Either she really, really hates men and goes out of her way to hate men, even strangers that she's never met before. Like, she goes out of her way to, even if not outright, but in confidence, be a hater of man. Or she really has no experience with men whatsoever and genuinely believes the doctrine puke that she's puking. And either one of those is scary, because I'm rationalizing it as there is no in between. It's someone who is so far gone that this is what it's come to.
It's by far one of the craziest things about modern day. And don't get me wrong, I love our modern day. I think this is the best time we've ever lived. And people can be like, oh, it can be a history analogy. Every generation thinks they're the best. Fuck all of you. It's the best time to live. Just look at the stats. Fuck all of you. Look at the stats, right? I'm not talking out of my ass here. In any case, in exchange, you know, every good thing has to come with a bad thing, right? And the bad thing of this era is that right, control the big three: media, education, and entertainment. But everybody else is looking around. It's like, this is odd, and perhaps somebody should do something. And if there's anything that invalidates the Trump election, it's the current monopoly of leftists and the agenda they're trying to pour into the audience. They're freaking people out. And you see a flux in conservative channels, subscription lists, and view counts. You see a lot of people just talking about this more and being supported and being encouraged to. Peterson has a huge following. Everybody who's countering this movement has a cult around them, because people are too scared to speak out of being shamed, right? And there's a beacon of hope. There is a beacon of hope to this, and I do want to mention this because I think this is very important, not just to talk about the bad things that are happening, but the good things that are happening. The new administration for the British Parliament has officially started a few days ago, and they're starting strong. The Parliament leader has put down all the opposition, and that in his speech, the Prime Minister gave a 16 powerful minute speech of optimism towards the British people and the British agenda, and they are hell-bent, we'll see if they deliver, hell-bent on leaving Brexit, or implementing Brexit, leaving the EU, and their oppressive regime, political monopoly thing, leaving at October 31st, and I hope they manage to do so, and that should be the start of people realizing that it's time for, as Putin quoted in one of his interviews, liberalism has outlived its usefulness, and it's time for it to go.
So what's interesting about the new leadership that's going to be hitting Britain is a lot of people are claiming that this is the British Trump. And granted, a lot of people just reference the hair, right? The crazy blonde hair. It must be another Trump guy, maybe, right? So, but I'm beginning to wonder. Yeah, like I'm beginning to wonder though if liberalism really is on its way out, if it really has overstayed its welcome. I always thought that it had a place, but it had a place from a distance, the same way that conservatism or traditionalism did. That it's there and it gets applied in theory when it fights for something that it really believes in, and people take it into consideration and apply it accordingly. the same way that people do with conservatism or traditionalism. But where I really began to actually believe this notion that it's on its way out and that it's overstayed its welcome and that it's basically poisoning everything at this point when it goes too far is when Brazil's new leader a couple years ago was slated also to be known as the the Brazilian Trump. And I'm beginning to see this movement where everybody that opposes, first of all, the people that are getting elected are basically channels of Trump's message one way or another. They're not direct channels, but like everyone's calling these people versions of Trump, these leaders, like different versions for different countries of Trump. And I'm beginning to think, was Trump really the antidote to drastic, toxic liberalism? Not that he's not a problem in and of itself, but is he really the antidote that people are going for, to the point where every time that it's popular to elect somebody who's so anti-liberal that they're being compared to Trump? Like, is that what we're getting now as a world, where we're getting a bunch of Trumps globally?
Well, to answer this, I'm going to have to reference the two great theories of history, which is basically, what drives history. And there's back in the day, there was the great man theory, which is that great men show up and they change things. And then a more modern look came in, which is called the trends and forces theory, which is that trends of forces, trades and agenda and revolution and stuff like that give the chance for great people to do things. But it doesn't have to be that great person in particular. Rather, it was ripe for a person like Trump to jump in, right? Both are viable in their own way, but I do stand more towards the trends and forces theory. The current trend of liberalism and the SJW agenda and LGBTQ and all of that stuff is basically making it ripe for a champion to come out to stand up against it. And Trump was the start, and he was not a very good example, by the way, but people are like flocking to great people, seemingly great people right now, who are getting traction as a reaction to what's happening right now, to the current mood. People are getting milkshaked, people are getting egged for saying things that are against certain people's agendas. People are being shut down and fired from their university for having an opinion on the matter. And people are not standing by idly. People are looking at this and they're like, oh shit, okay, maybe I don't have the courage, but the second somebody with courage comes in, I'm going to support them. And that's what you've been seeing in YouTube comment sections. That's what you've been seeing in voting. That's what you've been seeing in people getting followings and funding for these things. Why did Peterson's book, 12 Rules for Life, sell so well? Because people wanted to hear those things, but they were waiting for somebody to say it. White guilt has been killing the white man, and people who've been thinking that their entire life has been a big mistake and that they should spend the rest of their lives paying for it are starting to realize that that's not the case. Now Britain is getting wiser. They're leaving their political union, or that political union that bankrupted Greece, that forced unelected individuals to lead a global continent, right? You see countries and the Yellow Vest movement going against Macron caving in for a lot of people regretting not electing the conservative that was coming in there, which was Le Pen for France. It's what's her name? That fucking bitch, the German bitch, the prime
Merkel.
Merkel's falling. Yeah, Merkel's going after what the disaster she did with immigration. Everything is aligning. People are standing up. Channels are growing, and it's not about being conservative. It's about being not liberal. That's all there is to it. What's the argument? A lot of people who are right now were classic left 20 years ago, but the left got so radical that the moderate liberals have caved in and went to the other side. And I consider I used to consider myself like moderate left, but now I can't. Now I'm just either moderate or moderate right, because they've pushed me away. They don't want me in there. They don't want the reason. They don't want the logic. They don't want the facts. They don't want to debate. They don't want to discuss. discuss. They only want their agenda implemented, and to shame and hurt and damage everybody who doesn't agree. And people do not stand by idly. They react. There's a silent majority. They need to be more vocal, and they are getting more vocal.
There's an interesting comment, Hassan. He asked, will there ever be a functional government that everyone likes, or at the very least respects overall? I don't believe so. And part of the reason why is the functional government that you're talking about that everyone would respect would have to come, in my opinion, in the form of a dictatorship, where in not like just a dictatorship, like a 1984 George Orwell dictatorship, where it would be they control your thoughts, they control what you do, what you think, how you sleep, how you interact. They control every aspect of your being, of reality, and make it so that your existence is to honor and respect the government. So much so that it happens so inherently, and they start it from such a young age, that the indoctrination indirectly forces you to basically commit to that government. So in other words, it's a form of brainwashing. Like, the only way that I see it happening, and that's why like 1984, the Orwellian tragedy, is such a big deal, and why it's studied and being brought up now more than ever, is because a lot of people think their countries are heading in that direction. And people forget that the main point of that book was that it is supposed to be an exaggeration, but the hyperbole is supposed to show that quote unquote perfect government that citizens want, but in the perspective of the government and how they would go about implementing that.
I'm going to answer Hassan's next question, which is, how about a meritocracy? There's a problem with meritocracy because like communism, it's great in theory, but then you realize that the metric for competence in a meritocracy, because meritocracy, for those who don't know, is like ruled by people with merit. So the more merit you have, the more likely you are to be in a leadership position. The problem is, what judges that? What makes a person competent? And like communism, on a village scale, meritocracy, communism, all of these small systems rule well. But the second you make it like on a bigger scale, to the point where there are thousands or millions in there, like it becomes a huge competition. And if you like, you can look no further than Rome. That their thing was like, the person with the most prestige, honor, and merit is the one who gets on the higher stages. It worked when they were a small republic, and it worked great. But the second they became a global empire, people started competing against each other, and they don't have to be the most meritful to do so. They just have to be the people who are the most lucky or the most brutal when it comes to killing others, right? And here's the thing: capitalism and democracy win not because they're good. They win by a process of elimination. And to support this, I'm gonna recall a quote by Winston Churchill, which is, "Democracy is the worst form of government, except for all the rest." There is no way we have still to this day discovered a functional way to manage our lives in an effective way that would please everybody. But by process of elimination, the most practical happens to me a democratic and capitalistic society. Anything else is just bound to be corrupted with time way more than this one. And people can argue that capitalism and democracy is corrupt right now. It did not happen as quickly, nor is the damage as total as the socialist regimes or the communist regimes that occurred. Venezuela as an example of socialism, Russia as an example of communism, right? It's just the one that works. It's a process of elimination. It doesn't matter what you like and what you think is fair. What is practical here? What works? And what works so far has been the democratic capitalistic system. That's the only reason that we use it.
I remember having a long, drawn-out conversation with my dad about this, and he's like China, right? He's like the beast that you have to awaken. Usually comes home and he's like, I don't really give a shit about anything. And then if you touch politics, he knows exactly, or history, he knows exactly how to go off. And he basically summed up that in regards to democracy, It is the system that people have decided works the most, but it's terrible because you put power in people's hands, and most people don't know how to handle power, even if it's a little bit, like one single vote. And what's the biggest problem with giving people power is that they're going to exercise it. And a lot of people are not, they're basically not smart enough, for lack of a better term, to use it. No better example of this than any presidential election. It's like everyone has their skeletons in the closet. But when you consider the fact that there were people I'm going to reference the last election, which everyone is most familiar with. When you consider the fact that there were millions of people who not only were willing to vote for Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, unironically, but when you realize that there were thousands of people behind them and their campaigns willing to put that foot forward, right? Willing to put those as the options. That's when you realize how flawed democracy is, because the whole democratic process was never about their achievements. It was about their flaws. You could argue that's the political game to begin with. But if that's the political game and that's the democratic game, and America's quote unquote the country that has mastered it, then that's not a pretty good job, is it? Like if that's the basically if this is the best we can do.
Yes. Sadly, yes. Yeah. And like Hassan, you did mention Mao. And what was terrible, but it was effective. It did bring their nations to it did bring their nations up to speed. You know, they were able to modernize quickly by paying the highest costs possible. But I would like to look at a country like Kuwait, right? Kuwait is not by any means technologically advanced. I would say we're 20 years behind US when it comes to administration, when it comes to efficiency, when it comes to trade, when it comes to all these things, right? Like if a technology occurs in the US, it will be 20 years before it effectively enters Kuwait, right? But here's the thing, I'm comfortable and I'm happy, right? And I can I can be ahead of time when it comes to bringing the tech in, right? And it's fine, and everything works fine. And I don't have to suffer. It can be a slow progression towards modernization in our own flavor. What Russia did when it adopted the communist Stalin's communism, it killed Russia. And what happened to China, all that rich Chinese culture is dead now. It's trying to get back up, but they like Mao destroyed temples. You know, he killed a lot of culture to get where he is today. And I can't express this enough. Culture is what makes man. If you take away culture, we're just robots. And again, I'm gonna bring a culture like a Churchill quote, which is like, without culture, we're something, but without innovation to that culture, like, the nation is a corpse. So you need both, you know, tradition and innovation in order to get your nation going. But you can't just go into the innovation route. Modernization is not always the correct route. And I'm going to use Britain as a primary example here. Great Britain, they maintained their monarchy. They maintained their parliamental democracy, and they're able to, like, their democracy is built about like 600 years of progress, if not more, right? Of them building upon what they had. And whenever they see a movement going, like, you know, oh, the King of France has just been beheaded, revolution, the monarchy would look at this and like, okay, we're going to remove the power voluntarily so you guys don't kill us. And what happens is everybody wins, right? The monarchy wins by maintaining some sort of authority and merit for the fact that they, like, you know, ruled England all these years, and people get their democracy, right? And what happens here is that it's like slow and steady, and which is very important whenever you're building a nation. It doesn't have to be quick. It doesn't have to be like Stalin did or Mao did. It can be slow. Look at India. They're doing it slow. They're doing it their own way and their own flavor. That's important too. That's one mistake a lot of people in my country try to do, which is we try to copy everything the West does. Like, it's good to copy, but it's also great to take good ideas in and adopt it within your own culture, so your culture gets enriched. Kuwait's culture is dying because we're trying to modernize too quickly, even though it's not working. And I cannot emphasize this enough. What makes life beautiful is culture, art, beauty, and that can be in the forms of architecture, that can be in the forms of engineering and innovation, whatever it is. And if we neglect that effect, the effect that Russia and China are suffering from, all the communist countries are suffering from culturally, we are really having a big problem when it comes to knowing what our priorities are as individuals and as people.
I couldn't agree more. I would also like to add that culture it's the biggest pillar. There's the the hierarchy of needs, the pyramid, with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and like you need a person needs shelter, a person needs food, right? Like all the bare essentials. I think that if you were to apply that to a country and name it like the country's hierarchy of needs or the world's hierarchy of needs, there would be a lot of overlap for obvious reasons. But I think individually speaking, you would need to have the existence of culture. And culture is, make no mistake, is going to steer how we handle this in the future.
Yep.
And it is up to us now. So there are a lot of cynics out there, myself included. There are a lot of nihilists who think, what's the point? What's my voice, my individual voice, which translates to my individual vote? Or if you're this guy, if you're a tweeter, right? Someone who tweets or someone who posts on Facebook, even if I don't agree with you, keep posting what you believe, because that is what's going to keep this whole culture alive. The culture of having an open marketplace of ideas where they're allowed to compete with one another. If you think your logic is better than mine, it's your job to maybe not make me look stupid. That's a mean way of putting it, but prove it, right? Prove it and I'll do the same. And you know this every time you watch like a Jordan Peterson interview, right? Where he's like on a panel with people and it's his ideas get applause because people agree with him. And then he's debating some feminist woman in Australia and she gets applause. Well, because they're ideas that she proposes that resonate with her. I don't want to be the guy that says, let's find the middle ground here, right? But what is most common about what Jordan said versus what the hypothetical feminist character that on the internet is getting chastised every day, right? This practice of exercising the culture is what builds it and what keeps it going. So I find it ironic how people want to dismantle that because of how frustrated they are with the process, when they don't realize that part of the process is indeed the process. Yep. Maybe not always being frustrated, but there's always going to be somebody who's frustrated. Maybe it's your turn this time. Maybe you feel like the culture has let you down. Well, there are ways to get out of it. There are ways to overcome it. And I think that's another problem that could be expanded upon, is how when it comes to every element of culture that irritates someone, they just like to complain about it. Nobody ever likes to take the next step in bettering it, whether it's voicing your opinion or trying to, I'm using a generic example, but like go back to school, right? There's right now, like the lesser educated in this country are being frowned upon. Oh, it's only the lesser educated that would vote for Trump. Well, they're the majority, right? Lower to middle class, white, working class Americans without a college degree. Because in America, only 20% of people go to college. That should say something to every liberal progressive that's trying to promote the fact that, maybe some people don't want that higher education. But let's say those people are being insulted and one of them feels like he wants to do something about it. Maybe that step is to prove to yourself and others that you can go to college or whatever.
Here's why people of lower class would vote for Trump. Because a lot of the low class does not care about high idealism as the left tries to, most people just look around. And if you look around in the US right now, you see that the economy is booming. And I've been hearing it from multiple sources. A lot of people are like, everybody is having, like, is filled up. Unemployment rates are decreasing. People are making money again, and they're happy, right? And so a lot of times, as a middle class citizen, it's like, I don't agree with what Trump does and what Trump says or what Trump stands for and all that. But look, there's infrastructure. People are building things. It's good, Life is better for me.
If you touch my wallet, then yes, that is a big turning point.
And if you look at examples of radicalism and like protest and revolution in history, everybody is on the high horse until they start starving. Everybody's willing to fight for their God until they're hungry. Everybody tries to fight for their ideals until they're hungry. And once they're hungry, things change. Well, guess what Trump did? People are less hungry. And that's important. That's very important. High idealism is good, but also people taking care of their everyday needs is very important as well. And Trump knows this. And I'm not part of those people of the audience that says, oh, Trump is so dumb. I don't think Trump is dumb. I think Trump knows how to play the certain trumpets. And I think him making himself look dumb is one of his many, many effective strategies, because that's what the left is stuck to. We have an idiot in office, right?
And idiots voted for him, right?
Yeah, and idiots voted for him. And if only we educate people on how dumb he is, people will change. And meanwhile, Trump is sipping his fucking, his fucking martini or whatever, being like, dumbasses, I got you right where I want you. Again, like the Steam example, win by benefiting people. And that's how you capture people's hearts.
Like, I'd like to remind most people out there that most people just want to live. They want to live a basic life. Most people are simple in that regard. They want health care. They don't care how they get it. They just want health care. They don't want to pay for things that they're not themselves either benefiting from or have any interest in contributing to. You'd argue that's taxes, but taxing for a different reason, like education or for healthcare, that's where the debate obviously lies. So I'll break it down to people want healthcare. They don't want to pay for things that they themselves do not believe in. They want food on the table. They want shelter. The hierarchy of needs, that first couple of tabs on top are what people desire the most. And I think that the entire political game, but also the culture, in a sense, has strayed away from understanding that very simple concept. And the easiest way to remember this is, if you were homeless, what would be the number one thing that you would want first?
Shelter.
It would be a house. Yeah, shelter. It would be food. It would be maybe you've gotten some disease, so you want to check up at the doctor. Those three principal things. Everything else, you've heard the common saying, a need versus a want. The want is the Rolex. The need is knowing what time it is, to have a phone to know what time it is so that you can go to that job, so that you can make money to put food on the table, so that you don't get sick and you have somewhere to sleep to pay the bill, right? It's
most importantly,
it's all connected, and people are overlooking it.
To summarize this in the simplest way possible, well, it's using the word simple. It's the simple things, right? People want simple things. And Hassan, you asked what would be the natural progression if we want to make an ideal system. To reach an ideal, you have to converge towards it. That's what math taught me. If you're going to divide by 0 to reach infinity, you need to take the limit and converge slowly to that number to reach the result you want. And that's how we've built our systems. Everything that you've seen there is built upon these principles of limits and integration and whatever that starts from the idea of convergence. You can never reach an ideal, but you can get closer. And the way you get closer is by tackling the simple things and building up slowly. I'm not a believer in radical change. I'm not a believer in revolution. Every revolution I've looked at has failed miserably. The Arab Spring, the French Revolution, whatever you want. Every time people just go up and want change too quick, it will fall, because the new system will be young and will be open to corruption. You need to build it slowly, step by step. Rome wasn't built in a day, and we need to understand that as a proverb. And it starts with the little people. It starts with education. It starts with feeding. It starts with health, and then giving those people the opportunity to create great things. I was fortunate enough in my life to be provided by my government the opportunity to learn, the opportunity to feed, the opportunity to be safe, and the opportunity to expand my horizon without worrying too much about losing money or not having food on the table. My government has been very generous with me in that regard. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm using it to the best of my benefit, which is creating art, creating slow change, educating people, talking here on stream in a way that praises these small additions to life and comfort. And that's what prevents the biggest problems of the universe. It's not giving LGBT people their rights. It's rather creating a society where the people themselves would look at LGBT people and think like, I don't want to bother them if they don't bother me. Which is a way different idea from we need to give them rights ASAP. You start by humanizing the person, showing them making people relate, slowly introducing a way to increase people's hopes in the world, because people are losing hope. A lot of people Nikki Bean right there. People are looking at the state of the world and they're losing hope. And what I'm here to tell you guys is that no, this period is good. There are a lot of bad things, and we want to talk about them, to address them, and to mock them, and to shame them back into place. But things are getting better. Famine is an all-time low. Disease outbreaks, all-time low. Infrastructure, all-time high. Everything is rising, but what the left and generally people who want radical change want to tell you is that things are getting worse. And right now, I have not seen it. I trust my eyes way more than I trust some politician saying something or some radical saying something, left or right. I trust my eyes best. And from what I'm seeing, things are good. They are not bad. Things are getting better, but we can lose it. And we need to protect this change. We need to protect this. We need to actually be conscious, because otherwise we're going to lose the good life we've been having right now.
I don't know if I can follow that up. I feel like we're both saying the same thing. Culture is important. Life is good.
Yes.
We
can move on. Yeah, we can move on.
Actually, depression is not a laughing matter. I mean, on the internet it is, but
actually, to me, comedy is the greatest way to humanize a subject. So whenever you go and you make fun of depression, that's fine. That meme. A deaf person says I may be deaf, but let me hear your roasts as a post, and people start throwing roasts at her. And one of the greatest roasts of all time, do you masturbate with one hand so you can moan with the other? It's just so fucking beautiful, right? And the reason this is powerful is because the deaf person who is impaired, right, who is disabled, does not want to feel disabled, and they don't feel better if you tell them no, they're differently abled. They feel better if they're part of the gag. They're part of the humor gang. If somebody's fat, make fun of them for being fat, and if somebody is depressed, make fun of their depression. I've had a depressive period during my last 2 years of college. It was a very difficult time for me, and it was noticeable physically on my eyes and the way I talk and the way I pursue life, right? And what did my friends do? They didn't tell me it's okay, you can do better. That would make me feel worse. What they would do is oh, dead inside, and became a meme, and that would make me feel better. Friendly joking is always a good thing, and making fun of autistic people should not be a good thing. Do you know a mother would feel? No. It humanizes the subject, makes it relatable, makes it understandable, and it makes the person feel included in our world. Again, don't be harsh, be funny. There's a difference, a world of difference. and I encourage it personally. Also, I did watch the Cats trailer, and I refused to address it as a subject. Thank
Yeah,
you,
me
Mr.
too.
Miller.
And I refuse to watch it again. So I'm glad you've seen it because I did
Yeah.
not want to live react to it again.
Yeah, it does not deserve attention. It does not warrant attention. It's one of these things that you look at, and I'm like, I'm happy. I watch this now, so I don't have to watch it later when it's relevant. People can get angry, put it on the side. I've already had Batwoman. I've already had the female Thor. I don't want this. I don't need this in my life. Just throw it away. Throw it on the side. I'm sorry, I'm not covering this.
Basically, it's bad. So
Yes.
anyone that hasn't seen it, Invalid said it in the comment section. Watch at your own risk. Yeah, it's rough.
Now, on a lighter tone, I do want to mention this, which is that ASAP Rocky has been imprisoned in Sweden, and the only one that even kind of tried to stand up for him was Trump, and it's one of these weird limbo things, right? Like Trump is racist, right? And then you look at him, and nobody stood up for poor ASAP Rocky, and here's Trump is like, I guess I'll put in an effort. And you look at that and you're like, huh, what the fuck?
Well, the story goes as followed, right? Because Kanye West is really good friends with ASAP Rocky, and both Kanye and his wife Kim Kardashian have been to the White House. And Kim Kardashian, I would argue that Kim Kardashian has been doing more for criminal justice reform than most Democrats, at least in the year 2019. It is astounding. She helped free a woman that was wrongfully convicted. She had like a life sentence for having drugs on her. She wasn't selling them. She wasn't like she wasn't Pablo Escobar, right? Like she had drugs on her, and because of supposedly because of the race inequality here that allegedly takes place in the criminal justice system, it was her who had to help her get out, and she's apparently kept in contact with Trump, as indicated by the fact that, if I understand this correctly, Kanye told Kim, or Kim told Kanye, probably Kanye told Kim, who told Trump that ASAP Rocky got imprisoned in Sweden, and Trump was like, I'm on it. All right. Probably doesn't know, right?
That's actually a funny part about Trump, right? That's like literally exactly how it happened with North Korea. Like there was a guy who went to North Korea and pitied their circumstance and was trying to approach President Obama. Obama didn't give a shit. But when Trump came in, he approached him again. And Trump was like, oh, there's somebody trying to approach me? Okay, let's take a look at this. This is interesting. And then next thing you know, he's walking in the border of North Korea, right? And, I got to give points for Trump. He listens. Like, the points for you, man. Thank you,
It's what you said a couple streams ago. He will listen to whoever's willing to listen. He doesn't have he doesn't have the most eloquent or the most, let's be honest, intellectual of messages. He doesn't have the most reasonable of messages. But at the end of the day, even a psycho, and I'm not calling Trump a psycho, but even the most out there personality has something to say and wants to be listened to. Even a schizophrenic person wants to be heard. And the fact of the matter is that if somebody is coming to Trump, no less from the African American community, as has become a meme recently, right? Trump is helping the African American community. Everybody makes a big deal about it. It's like, if somebody comes to him from the younger generation, who knows how to appeal to the younger generation, who's black, who's a rapper, who's involved in pop culture, arguably as much as he is, like, of course Trump's gonna, like, you feel like a person who's coming to you to ask for a favor, right? Like, I'm wanted,
right,
needed for something. And let's be honest, Trump probably didn't know who the prime minister of Sweden was. Probably had to Google search it. Probably had to Google search who ASAP Rocky was. But he's an American, right? It's an American citizen that is allegedly wrongfully convicted for assault in Sweden. And Sweden has had a history of this, not of wrongful convictions, but of assault.
Yep.
Trump is aware of this. Mind you,
It-
possibly Kanye and Kim are aware. So this is moving forward.
and that's the biggest part of Trump that I think makes him the most like, and that's why I think he's going to take his second term personally, is because he's human. He has all his bad qualities, but in the end, he's human, and therefore you can approach him in a human way. You know how like everybody's making fun of Trump because like world leaders have to like accommodate for him and his ego, right? But that ego is also what makes him human, right? If you go to like somebody like Obama, who's like a made guy, right? Like a president's robot, right? And then you compare him to like Trump, who like listens and does human things and make human mistakes, right? And gets mocked and mocks back and talks about his wiener, and you know, you look at that and you're like, this is humanism, right?
Well, what's
This
interesting
is
is I consider the past two presidents to actually be revolutions in this regard. Both Trump and Obama, because Obama had plenty of human moments as well. Basically, whenever he went to NBA games or whenever he's talking to like professional athletes, you see like his, as he calls it, his hood side come out, because he grew up in the hood, right? So it's
yeah,
like that human side comes out, and then, but it's so obvious with Obama because he would put it out there, and then it's time to get back to the politics. It's time to get back to the quote unquote white man expects from me, as people were claiming. Trump is the way he is all the time, and I don't doubt that it's problematic, but it is who he is.
And funny part is Obama is like you know, if I'm gonna take a stance on it, it's probably one of the worst presidents that were ever there. And the reason he was bad is like he shot people, he drone strikes. The border crisis originated with Obama. You know, like at the stage people are criticizing Trump. Well, it came through the Obama times, right? And
yeah, he made
just
the cages, right? People forget that part.
Yeah, right. It's so bad. It's like you look at Obama's career, it's like that guy's the psychopath, right? And it's crazy. And then you look at Trump, and you're like, he seems like a guy you can talk to. You can find him on the street, and you can like, you know, at a restaurant, and like heckle him, and he'll heckle back. You know, and that to me is so important. You know, I don't want a God figure as a president. I want a human, somebody I can look at, right? Somebody I can imagine being in his shoes, and that gives it all the more dimensions. And that's who I think he's gonna win personally. Like, I don't know what, like, I don't think Joe Biden has him, and if Andrew Yang and Bernie don't make it, which I don't think they will, because the Democratic Party is a bunch of dumbasses, I don't think anybody has a chance besides these two. And again, they have a chance. It depends on how well they perform. And the only reason I'd give like Bernie Sanders the benefit of the doubt is because he is kind of Trumpish, right? He is kind of he just says his piece, and you know, like does not care about public opinion and stuff like that. He says his piece, and he says it powerfully. And you look at Yang, and he's like, he's reasonable, and that's the difference. And he's not a made guy. He has a policy, and he wants to force it. And then you look at the rest, and you're like, ow, you know.
And this is the most problematic aspect of running against someone like Trump, because in a sense, in order to beat Trump, in theory, you have to be as big, if not a bigger personality as him. It's like when Eminem said in the song Fall, like, if you're going to critique me, you better be as good or better than me. Like, in order to combat Trump, you have to own up to, you have to project, you have to be big, you have to be grand, because he's already made a stance. From the beginning, everybody clowned him, and he was aware of it, and somehow he made it to the spotlight. He already earned his stripes, and he's continuing this persona, whether it be fake or not. I don't think it's fake. I think this is the way he is, and if he is faking it, he's extremely good at faking, acting like the guy that everybody hates on a constant basis, right? Which is why I don't think he's faking it, because there's no way that you would want that.
I think it's a mix of both. He's like working, like that's the way he is, and you know how it's like if you have a certain personality, don't change it, have it work to your advantage, and that's how it's going.
Exactly, and I'm thinking about all these candidates, and it's like every day on the news, Kamala Harris, she's a very good candidate. Kamala Harris will lie to your face. And we know she'll lie to your face more than any of the other candidates will, because she what was the first thing that she tried to do to appeal to young voters? Oh yeah, I used to listen to Snoop Dogg. I listen to Snoop Dogg all the time. Really?
Yeah, like, oh, that's so dumb.
Snoop Dogg song.
And the most hilarious part is during your college time, there was no Snoop Dogg album dropped. So it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? You fucking piece of shit. You know, you fucking liar.
Like, most politicians can hide it. She lied right to your face, and you caught it at face value. Joe Biden is still, in my opinion, one of the better options to beat Trump. But I don't like how corporate he is. Bernie Sanders is the anti-Trump, but he never answers questions. Everything is, we have to tackle the corporations. It's the industry. Okay, but I asked you about healthcare. What's your plan? Then you have Elizabeth Warren, who's like, I have a plan for everything, and she does, but she lied about being Native American. And she's the most unlikable bitch on that stage. But she makes sense. So what's happening? What's happening?
I do want to move on from this topic and actually cover a question that's been put on the stream by Musa. So he asked, what do you think of multiculturalism? And multiculturalism is a wonderful thing as long as it does not include globalist agenda. What I mean by that is, culture should be mutually exclusive, and they should be respected, and they should be adopted into their own countries effectively, and not disrespected for the sake of minorities in that place. So multiculturalism is great as long as you're not doing whatever the EU is doing right now. I.e., you can multiple cultures means multiple innovations, multiple forms of art, multiple forms of great things. But once you put it in a globalist agenda, the way they do it is like, we're all the same, but different, but the same and different. And we can all live with each other in small communities that break us apart and disunites us and makes us easy to control shit. And that's the scary part of the idea of multiculturalism. As long as it, as I've always said, everything has the asterisk within reason, put next to it, and multiculturalism is great within reason.
Again, I agree, but I would also like to add on to that by saying that Ben Shapiro recently did a bit on one of his episodes of Daily Wire, whatever his show is called, where he was claiming that a lot of people accuse him of being a nationalist, like a hardcore nationalist. And he broke down the fact that we shouldn't kid ourselves. This is a globalist world. We are global. And we have to do things with the consideration of how the rest of the world is going to react to it. But that doesn't mean at the expense of not caring for your people as opposed to caring for others. So in other words, if the big idea is that you hear from a lot of Democratic candidates is like, we have to do what we were talking about Sweden earlier. We have to do what Bernie Sanders does. We have to do what Sweden does, right? Sweden's healthcare is the most. Canada's healthcare is the best. This country and that country. And it's like, we're not those countries. We've never been those countries. We don't have the same capabilities to be those countries. And it's to the point where we should care about those people, right? We should care about those people's opinions about our leaders and about our people and about our country. And it's like, we can take their opinions into consideration because they are valid. But where are you living right now? When you go outside, who are you going to see? A Swede or an American first?
Here's the thing, too. Hassan asked the question, would you say multiculturalism in America is leaning towards globalism? Here's the thing that makes America great as a multicultural nation. They respect your culture as long as you're willing to respect the American ideal, the American way of life, the American dream, etc., etc. So if you bring your culture to America, you have to assimilate it within the bigger idea of the nation, right? if you go to globalism in the EU, what they're trying to do is they're trying to not assimilate, rather coexist cultures within the same sphere. And there's a problem whenever you're trying to coexist. Which form of law do you respect? So, all these Muslim immigrants, I assume, would want to be judged by Islamic law, or at least Islamic-inspired law. Well, the Europeans don't want that. How do you reconcile this? Had the Muslims assimilated into the European cultural stance, they would be minorities within a majority nation, and both are respected and can respect each other, as long as the nation's ideal is respected more. Whenever you enter a new group of friends, you need to respect the culture that already exists there. And that's the globalist mistake. The globalists want everybody to have different cultures to coexist within each other without respect for national or traditional identity. And that's the big mistake. America did it right, and Europe should actually take a page out of America's multicultural Europe. You cannot forget that Germany has German values, France has French values, Italy has Italian values, and you need to respect those values and the people who came before you, regardless of who owned what before. It's not a matter of who lived here 1,000 years ago. It's a matter of what the people, the small people, what their culture is, and how do you respect that and make that thrive, even though you want to implement your own take on it as a minority culture.
Yes, the reason I answered yes to do I think that multiculturalism is transitioning to globalism is I answered yes to that because I don't inherently think it's a bad thing. I agree with Ben Shapiro in this regard. It's a global world, and we have to take into consideration when we take big steps, when a country takes big steps to do something, how the rest of the world is going to react. But again, like Trillian said, it's within reason. Multiculturalism on its own is I don't know if it's an inherently good thing or bad thing. It just happens, and I'll deal with it. Like it's fine. Somebody said in the comments, like, he lives in upstate New York and there's plenty of Middle Eastern people there, and that's fine. Like, no one really cares about it. In California, there's a lot of Hispanics here, and I'm talking hardcore Hispanics, ones that weren't born here, ones that came illegally. And guess what? Most people don't really care. Just like, are you nice to me on a daily basis? If I need help finding something at a store, would you be able to assist me? If I dropped my phone, would you pick it up for me?
It's the simple things again that people forget. And again, people are all about, we should you should accommodate for Hispanics. No, the Hispanics should accommodate for themselves, and we should provide them the same things we provide other Americans. Same thing for Muslims, and I say this very, very strongly. Do not, America, do not give Muslims any leeway. We're dangerous, and we're not dangerous because we're radical Islamists. It's rather because we want our rights, we want to implement our Islamic values, and if you give us a chance, we will, and we will try to enforce it. We will try to become dominant. It's just it's the way the culture of Arabs is built. We think we're better, And I always, whenever I see a Christian in our country, I really, really give them a huge bow of respect, because when they came in, they're allowed to worship in their own private thing, but the condition is that you don't actively spread and preach. Let people, you do your thing, let other people do the thing, and everything's fine. And the Christians follow this to the max. I remember talking to a Christian person, and I'm like, I would love to go to your church and ask you questions there and learn more about that particular sect or church and how you guys do things. And he's like, I would love to invite you, but we have to be very careful, because we may break some laws when it comes to trying to sell our agenda. You can come in, I can give you some sources, but it's very hard for me to invite you into the church. And I'm like, God, if only the Muslims outside did this. Instead of actively preaching and trying to take over some shit. And it comes to lower education. It comes to them not understanding the rules. It comes to the Europeans giving them too much leeway, because in the end, if you give anybody too much leeway, they will try to abuse it. And it's just a matter of putting a firm stance against anybody who's a minority coming in, you're coming to us. You have to understand this. So you have to follow our rules. You know, like Canada's immigration laws, whenever you go there, you have to take a French course, you have to take a few courses on how to deal with Canadian people and Canadian culture before they put you in the streets. And that's important to them, that you go through them. Even if you know everything about Canada, you need to go through these, and we need to know that you understand this before you get in. You need to respect us. You know, you're coming here, you're immigrating here, so you need to be part of our culture. As you can be yourself, you can have your own culture. In fact, that will enrich our culture, but you need to assimilate. That's important.
Exactly, and I'd also like to add, in regards to potentially playing devil's advocate here, but a lot of people who can't assimilate or are having a lot of trouble assimilating is it's out of fear. You're in a new place, you don't understand the culture, you don't understand what's really going on. A lot of people, it's out of desperation that they are where they are now. And there's an old saying, right? Make yourself feel at home. Where if you come into somebody's house as a guest, they always tell you, oh, just, you know, you can sit there, make yourself feel at home. I'm not saying that's the same people are running with, but they are running with that concept. And a lot of it's inadvertent. A lot of people don't realize that they're doing this subconsciously, that they're trying to implement the big argument that you hear here in the States that I think is overblown is the fear of Sharia law. Sharia law is coming here. And I'm like, what the fuck? No, it's not. It's not coming here. Why? Yeah. Trust me, there's more than enough people who are not going to stand for it. But the reason that whole topic exists is for the simple fact that there were a few people here who reached the legal system, right? Like something happened and they were brought to court and they did not want to be judged by American standards. They wanted to be judged by Sharia law. And because America has this whole freedom of religion clause, this was a complicated issue. In fact, I don't think it's solved yet. How do we go about handling this? Technically, Sharia law is a part of the freedom of religion, right? So do we judge them by Sharia law? But that's not something we're willing to do. But that's something they're willing to do. But we have to honor them. But we have to respect them back and forth. And before you know it, you have Fox News versus CNN. And Sharia law must be honored because it's, you know, these are immigrants who came here and they're seeking asylum and they're in trouble and blah, blah, blah. Versus get them all out. They're stupid saying Arabs, get them all out. Sharia law, never. And you're just like, how are you two this far apart? It's a poor guy who's confused and he wants to feel at home.
You know, the funny part here is if you look at our country, Kuwait, and most Middle Eastern countries, minus Saudi Arabia because they're weird, but they're changing too. A lot of people are like going away from Sharia law, and the reason they are, like, it's almost not implemented here. The reason is because they're coming to understand, like, you know, with higher education comes a bigger perspective, right? And here's the thing: most people who immigrate out of desperation are usually lower educated people, right? So they don't know any better, so they know they go with what they know, and because they don't know any better, it's really very difficult for them to realize the intricacies of something as implementing Sharia law in modern time, right? And here's why I argue for reform and like in the Islamic world. And it doesn't have to be radical, it has to happen, but nobody's willing to do it here. Everybody's like stuck. We kind of don't want Sharia law, but we don't want to like implement anything because anything can be considered a sacrilege here. Because within the Islamic faith, anything that was not implemented during the years of the Prophet and it cannot be assimilated through the proper schools, which are very flexible but still have their limitations, is considered sacrilege, heresy, you know? And I believe that personally we need our own like renaissance of thought during that. We need like new thinkers coming in, adding and assimilating the Islamic faith into this modern perspective within its own way. And the way I'm referring this is like, no, don't adopt Western ideals. No, the West adopted its own ideals based on their Christian values. We need to do the same, right? We need to like do our own version of those reforms and make it better and modern and easier to handle and all of that. And one of the primary parts is like a lot of things that were implemented back in the day during the Islamic time were implemented because they were necessary. When you like, it was done during an era to maintain order within a very, very nomadic peoples, right? And now society has evolved. For example, like the plainest examples, you're not allowed in the Islamic faith to eat with your left hand. Now, that would sound preposterous for somebody who's not part of the culture, but the reason is, whenever, as part of our hygienic process, after we take a dump, it's back in the day and during the modern time, we clean our anuses with our left hand, water, tissue, etc. So it's squeak clean, not an ounce of poop in there. And once that's done with, we go on our day. So the left hand was always very dirty back in the day. There was no soap. Like, the left hand was just preposterous because that's what you used to clean yourself. And you can clean it with sand, you can clean it with whatever water you had back in the day, but it was a scarce resource, so you needed to be very careful with this. So you eat with the clean hand, which is the right hand, and it was already defined. This era, though, we have soap, right? We have there are ways to eliminate the smell, the germs, all these things from the left hand. So what happens is a debate needs to establish, and I don't know what the result is going to be, but basically, is this value needed anymore? And should it be shamed in public? Because it is. If you eat with your left hand, people are like, ugh, he eats with the left hand, ew. Another big conversation is music. There are certain Muslim schools that are saying music is banned. It's the loot of the devil, right? It put the second you start hearing a song, it's next thing you're fornicating. It's that big to some people.
The Christians already went through that. We went through that phase. Now everyone, there was a time when that was accepted, and now everyone who says that is a crazy, usually bowl-cutted white mom.
And the funny part is, it's only within the school that's prevalent in the Gulf. If you go to the Levant area, Syria, Lebanon, music is encouraged, and it's part of worship. Actually, there are a lot of songs praising the Prophet. You go to Tunis and Morocco, Northern Africa, it's encouraged. Song is great. It's only the Gulf that has this problem. Again, a debate needs to be established. But the problem is that right now the schools of Islam are stuck within reformers that did the reforms during the 1500s, 1600s. That's when it stopped, when Islam stopped evolving and schools stopped it stopped. There are I think 4 major schools and a lot of sects within those schools, and it stops there. Hanbali school and Maliki school and stuff like that, and they're just stuck. And then you go, of course, there's the Shia problem of them having different schools and different sects as well. And what happens is nobody's willing to talk, and talking is a very important thing in order to increase and evolve as a society. But there's a stalemate right now within Islamic values because everybody's afraid to talk, because the second you start talking, the way I'm talking right now, a religious person or even a regular person would hear what I'm saying right now, and they would call me a heretic. They would call me they would call me a liberal swine. They would probably even associate me with infidels and all that stuff, right?
And they would call YouTube and tell them to shut you down.
I would be defamed very quickly if I said what I just told you in public in an Arabic in the Arabic language. People hear this and they'll be like, oh, they get scared and defensive because everybody's scared to say this. I'm not personally, because it needs to be said. And mind you, I'm using the English language to protect myself and my family and all that stuff from scandal and all that, because it can reach that point sometimes. Because again, people are too fucking scared. That's the problem here. But it will improve with time. I'm very optimistic. I think as education increases, which we're really failing at in Kuwait here, our education system is in shambles. But as things improve, things get better, things evolve, we get better thinking minds and in larger quantities, things will get better, things will improve, and I'm not in a rush. Kuwait needs its 30-year period. The Arabs need their 50 years to slowly reform, same way as the Christians did. You guys did it way earlier, 1500s, Renaissance, blah blah. I know that, I realize that, but give us our time too, and actively encourage it. And it's all right. It's like I'm an optimist. I'm very cynical in thought, but my cynicism breathes optimism, which is how I like to portray myself.
Well, that's exactly why I scoff at a lot of the quote unquote patriots of this country who don't really do anything for the country, but they just compare it to how, in their eyes, it's better than every other country or culture, right? So there are people here that would listen to what you just said, you opening up about that, and they would make fun of it, right? Like,
yeah, look at those backwards.
Yeah, and my response to that would be, do you know, you being the Christian savior that you think you are, like living in America and everything, how long ago it was that your people, quote unquote, if I really want to hit home, were doing that or thinking similarly to how the people in that place are thinking? Not that long ago, actually. Not that long ago. We know this because we have the Westboro Baptist Church here, which is a walking meme, but is also a walking offensive sign.
It wasn't for the U.S. It wasn't that far ago that blacks were oppressed, Catholics were denied any rights. It wasn't that far long. It wasn't that long ago. Like, you guys aren't better. You guys just are, you happen to be quicker. That's all there is to it.
Exactly. So I have to scoff at people that think this way, because it's like, look, the same way that people learn at different rates, people are going to develop in different rates. And I would argue that we should still start here we should continue the phase here, because it's never going to end. Like, it's a work in progress always. And if you want to do something about that backwards thinking, go do something about that lady on the other side of the country that's yelling at people, even though gay marriage is allowed, but holding up a sign saying, if you're a fag, you'll go to hell, right? And it's like, yeah, people make gay jokes, but who cares? Like, do you really care that much? And that's where the backwardness stems from, because there are people that care that much because they're that ignorant. Well, it looks like it's carry time, guys. I'm going to have to carry this stream like I always do. I'm on my own now. I'm scared. I might as well look at the comments while Trillian goes and takes a shit and wipes his ass with his left hand. Alrighty then. So what have I missed today? A lot of good comments. This has been a really good stream. Very informative, in my opinion. Let's see, Hassan. European countries have had centuries of internal conflict they need to sort out on the top of. I agree. European countries are, I wouldn't go as far as to claim that they're going through their own Renaissance period, or they're going through like their own, but they're certainly going through a period that historians will one day look back and think it was very eventful, immigration-wise especially. Now we have to see what the new leader of Britain does. But I do think immigration will be at the forefront as far as European countries are concerned. That is definitely a talking point at the moment, although I don't want to comment on it too much, because I feel like I have a lot in previous streams, and it hasn't really evolved much. Invalid. I did not bring up the $2.5 billion for the border wall ruling by the Supreme Court, because I know it's not that simple. I know that when something like this just came out 2 hours ago, it's supposed to be a big deal, but knowing how these things turn out, there's going to be a lot of precautions. There's going to be a lot of clauses. You see Trump getting excited, but it's nothing definitive yet. Like, it's 2.5 going to the wall, but wait, there's something else, right? And I'll comment on it when I have more. I'll be honest with you, I haven't read the full report yet, or what it is. So maybe it's entirely true. 2.5 for the wall. Trump's finally winning in that regard. I don't know, but I don't feel confident commenting on it yet.
Personally, the way I see it, I'm not that excited about the wall as much as I'm excited for Trump trying to fulfill his promise. And it's important for you to for a candidate when he promises something to actually fulfill it. And the presidents lately have in the U.S. have been failing at that. And look at Trump; he's trying, and people notice these things, right? You're trying to fulfill your campaign promise of the wall, and regardless of whether it fails or succeeds or they reach a compromise, it was talked about. It passed through Parliament, and he tried, and maybe it didn't work. Maybe people stood against him, and maybe it's a bad idea. But he tried to fulfill his campaign promise, and I hope U.S. I commend you, and I hope this trend keeps going. I hope your presidents keep fulfilling the promise. I love the United States. All right, I love a lot of countries. I love a lot of cultures, and I'm against some of the things the U.S. does to the world. But I am for them thinking America first. The same way I like to think that I would put Kuwait first, and the same way a Russian would put Russia first, and an Albanian would put Albania first. I'm a believer in a national identity being a good thing, right? And one of the greatest qualities that a president should have is being able to fulfill his campaign promises, or at least trying to. And to me, it's looking up for you guys, and I'm happy. It's been a while.
Yeah, I will say this. Trump and the wall. The wall to me was always symbolic.
Yep.
I never thought that it was going to get done. I thought it was Trump's talking point, like every other politician. They have that one promise they make. I would like to claim that I would like to think rather that Trump's promise, his primary intention, was border security, and the wall was indicative of. It was symbolic of that, and it's indicative now that he is indeed trying, and that this might be another chapter of him winning. But I will say this: it was definitely not easy to get here, and I would much rather Trump address the actual issue of border security as opposed to building the wall, because the wall is that's the promise he made, and that's why people want it. But most illegal immigrants come here via plane. And people have broken this down, like world-class economists and historians have broken this down. And it's like the wall is symbolic of Trump doing what Trillian just said, fulfilling the promise. As far as how much it will work, it likely won't. But by the time it gets complete, Trump will already be out of office, and the next president will be screwing up, and thus his legacy will be one to remember. And or if it doesn't work, then that's another talking point for somebody who agrees with Trump to keep pushing for border security.
Yep.
So it's all connected.
Now, here's one thing I would like to say, which is even if the wall gets built and it's useless practically, people forget the power of symbols. Look at the Statue of Liberty. When Britain gave you that, it was a symbol of trying to be friends, even though you guys just broke out of our subjugation. And it's France, rather. Sorry, it's a symbol of our friendship, right? And whenever you see that, you remember that. And symbols are powerful, right? It's very important that for hope, people's hopes to live up. The wall may not be of practical use, but just as Ming China built the Great Wall and revamped it to protect against Mongol invasion, while that didn't work and the Manchu took over and the Qing dynasty came forth, what that did was add to the symbolism. People would look at that Great Wall and they'd be like, we're safe. Even though it didn't have much practical use. People just felt safer by it existing. And people forget the power of that, man. It's like symbols matter. And if it takes 2.5 billion to make the US citizens feel secure about their borders, then so be it.
And on that note, I think we should go ahead and this was an insightful stream. This was action packed.
Yep, it's sort of that's half of the topics weren't even on the topic list, but we like you guys really carried us this time. Gave us a lot of topics to talk about.
Yeah, so I will say it'll be difficult to pick an MVC this time, but it's always a group effort. So I say on my end, I'd have to give it to Hassan.
Me too. Hassan has been going very steadily increasing his topics, adding his take, which is always good, keeping the stream active.
Basically steered the direction of half of the stream, if not more. So did a lot of other people keep adding on to, and that's something I'd like to remind that you can also do is have conversations with people in the chat, because obviously we can't get to everything for obvious reasons, but people were interacting and they were debating amongst themselves, and we like to see that as well, because that's going to spark our interest in something we want to talk about. It was an Alex Jones topic that we'll have to say for another day, but Alex Jones is always a fresh take. So Hassan, yeah. I think Trillion lagged at the best possible.
Yeah, I did.
Right?
I did. Yeah, I was gonna. As I said, Alex Jones is a gym. I guess the government was like, "Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh shit!" Then they just, they had to click that very quickly. I really hope an FBI agent is just looking at this. Yeah, just like, oh my god, these guys, they're saying too much sense. God damn it.
No, it's like there's an FBI agent assigned to our stream. He's like, he just comes in with like a bag of peanuts or popcorn. He's like, all right, this again. And halfway in, they're like, the guy's making some pretty good points. It's pretty entertaining, not gonna lie. And then maybe he disagrees with something. No, that is not how that happens. That is not how that works. I spilled my popcorn. They can't hear me.
Yeah, and they have like the lag button, right? And whenever something is like, oh, okay, they're getting too woke, and they click the they click the lag button.
All right, here's 10 seconds. They just hold it down. That's good enough, yeah.
On that note, it's been wonderful. Thank you, guys.
Bots in the comment section, right? Like, we're waiting for bots in the comment section. So
yes,
start just commenting random.
We want the dislikes. We want the feminazis to catch on to our stream and start attacking us for the exposure, But yeah, you guys have been wonderful. Thank you guys for being here. It's always nice to see you guys, and yeah, see you guys next week, same time.
Take care.